Once again, today we are meeting for the second virtual advisory committee meeting. And this is a collaboration with the Department of Education, the Office of Learning and Development, and the Office of the Educator Development, Licensure, and Family Engagement, and the Preschool Development Grant. Next slide, please. So just a reminder, today we're going to go over the agenda. The agenda in English and Spanish will be placed on the chat. You should have also received the agenda on the reminder email that we sent. Today we're going to go over, we went over an overview and Zoom norms. Then we're going to move over some overview of the group norms. We're going to be reviewing emerging themes. Here is where we would be exploring, some of these themes that came from the first meeting. So today we'll be exploring them. And some of those themes are responsibility, collaboration, and partnership. Then we would send you to breakout rooms. And right here, we would love for you to have this discussion based on our conversation before your breakout room. And then, of course, we'll come back and share all of those wonderful ideas that you talked in your groups. Then we'll proceed to talk about tools and resources. And we'll have some work and group, and that would be from the framework sections. And then, of course, we'll go to closing and next steps. Next slide, please. Just a reminder, everybody that is part of the advisory committee can access the resource folder. Jamie, if you have a chance, you can pull up the resource folder so the participants can see it. Right here, you would find any documents, any data pertaining to the advisory committee. We have it in English and Spanish. So the action items, it's anything that we would need you to contribute and work with us. The meeting resources, right here, you'll find the resources for the meetings, like the agendas, the PowerPoints, any other hyperlinks that might be important for you to reference back. And of course, any notes from previous meetings. Thank you, Jamie. Now we can go back to the PowerPoint. So the link would be placed on the chat. You can also scan the QR code and just have fun with the, with all of the information that we have to share. Next slide. So just a little quick icebreaker. I would love for everyone to kind of get a feeling in the room. How is everyone feeling? So just place, some reactions on the chat or use some of the Zoom buttons with the reactions. I just want to see how are you doing professionally and personally coming into this meeting. What's your mood right now? So place it on the chat, use the emojis. Okay, Tara, I see you. Okay, I see you. Let's see who else. Oh my goodness, that's great. Oh, I got some a wink face, nice. Oh, happy face, great. I mean, I don't know where you're at, but I'm in the Northern Nevada area, and I hope I get internet throughout all of this meeting because the wind is pretty bad. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm like a little scared. I'm like, please, internet, don't go away. Okay, perfect. Well, now that we got a little feeling, it seems like everybody's doing great. Some people are like, we're almost there. One more day. We're in Friday Junior, so we can do this. So let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so the overview of the group norms. So last meeting, we talked about, the norms that we wanted to kind of not implement, but discuss in this group. And we wanted to hear your suggestions. We're going to place on the chat the group norms in English and Spanish. Feel free to give any suggestions if you haven't done so. Shout out to Adriana. Adriana, thank you so much for completing it. Thank you for letting us know that you agree. And the group norms, once again, we just want everybody to assume positive intentions. We just want to make sure that we have that respectful place where we can have ongoing and unfinalized conversations. It's okay to not have those conversations finalized. Be present, reduce the distractions. I know that can be really hard, but what matters is that you're here, so don't stress out. Stay engaged. and allow your space for acceptance and change and learning. Step out of your comfort zone. And once again, remember that this is a safe space, and we want to honor the diversity and the different points of view in the room. Thank you so much, Jamie, for sharing that slide. Can we go to the next one? So now I'm gonna pass it over to my wonderful colleague, Rachel Stepina.
Hi, I think it's still morning, so I can say good morning. I was trying to put a little heart on everybody's reaction from our icebreaker. So if I didn't get to yours yet before Nayesi turned the time to me, I'll get it there, but you've got a little heart from me, whether that's you need energy for the day, or I'm excited alongside you, or whatever it is. I am happy to be here together today. We wanted to spend our time together reviewing some of our emerging themes from our previous meeting. So if you didn't get to attend, we do have notes available from that time together. And you can review those notes for a little bit of a synthesis. Jamie's going to put the resource notes summary in there. We just went through and analyzed what did we hear? What did we observe? What were we thinking through together as a team? The first meeting, we did have about 40 people engage. We know today's schedule is a little bit tricky. Happy Leap Day. I have no idea how to say that in Spanish, so I'm sorry, Ana or Rosa, but you'll have to teach me that one.
It's Feliz Año Bisiesto.
Bisiesto. Okay, that's going to be one for everybody to learn. We need to practice that together because I need to learn this new term. So it's feliz, okay? Año
Bisiesto.
Año bisiesto. All right. So thank you for spending our time together today. You can review those notes from the resource folder. And we really picked up on these 6 emerging themes, whether it's a topic to explore or an area that we may have identified prior to our time together in January. We wanted to bring forward and elevate first equity and diversity. That is important, not only as a value to the Department of Education, to the preschool development grant work, but to families and engaging families, we must have equity and diversity. And so we really want to continue calling that out as a theme, not just for the framework, but in the application of the principles of the framework in our day-to-day work, really exploring multiple perspectives, listening and bringing family voices to the table, and many, many, many different partners to the table. So another thing, speaking of partners, that came forward during the last meeting was these 3 words: partnership, collaboration, responsibility. And we had a lot of discussions around what does that mean? So we'll dive into that in just a minute. Another one that came forward was the difference between resources and tools. The framework itself has a toolkit, and tools is used frequently, but it just came forward as a theme when we were discussing this with many partners last time. So we'll dive into that a little bit later as well. Also, we reviewed the definition, so that's going to continue being an emerging theme as we refine that definition. Because we've already explored it a little bit, we want to move on to some of these other themes, and then we'll come back together as a group in a couple meetings from now and begin diving in for a second round on those terms. The 5th one here is that tying into equity and diversity, we really want family voices, a deep look at family perspectives, because family voices are present. So if you are family and a parent, or you came to the employment role that you are because of your being family and parent to young children, thank you for the work you do, and thank you for being here. Your voice is very, very important. So I'm going to give a big shout out to you. If you are that, if you fit this family and parent role, go ahead and use another reaction in our in the Zoom screen or in the chat, just to let us know you're here, because your voice is valued and it matters. Then the final emerging theme, thank you, Ariel. I see you in the chat and I can't see everybody's screens if you put up an emoji. I know Anise, you're in here too, and I know that you are as well. So the final emerging theme is the toolkit itself. Again, we'll dive right in to that during another meeting, but really thinking through tools and resources is another connection. So some of these emerging themes are connected and some of them are distinct. And so we'll continue our conversations as the advisory committee continues its meeting over the upcoming months in the revision of this framework. All right, I think that's it, Nayezdi. I may have spent a little bit too much time on here. Let me just double check. One of the places that I'm coming in, I put a little face that was like, eh. I can't redo that emoji very well, and I'm not going to do it again today. But I'm coming in a lot of different tasks that my brain is trying to accomplish all at once. So I'm doing my best to stay present here, especially with our group norms. And I appreciate your patience as I fumble through my words. So I guess we will just pause before I turn the time over to Nayezdi, and we'd like you guys to come off of mute. What other reflections or questions do you have about these themes? So did you hear something else during our time together that we'd like to add to this? Did you really resonate with one of the things that are up on this screen? So I'd love to mute myself so I can collect my brain and my words and hear from your voices, which is priority today. So I'm going to mute and just reflections from any of these emerging themes. What's missing? What really stands out to you?
I would say, and sorry, this is Ariel. I hope you can hear me. I would say maybe I would definitely say between collaborations and partnerships. I know this has been a topic for I'm in another group, Netflix. And so I know we were talking about this yesterday regarding like, collaborating with other resources and communities for our families, just to see who can pretty much reach out to our families throughout Nevada, north and southern areas to see what the needs are. So I'm just curious to see what collaborations and partnerships are out there. And hopefully this will even help me as a parent too, so I can personally have it for myself as resources and as well as to pretty much speak to other families that I'm aware of and know of in other communities about the partnerships and collaborations that we're aware of and want others to know.
Thank you, Ariel. And I pronounced your name wrong earlier. Keep correcting me until I get it right.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. Thank you.
I love how you called that forward, and I can't wait to dive into the other in a couple slides from now we'll be able to dive right into that topic, and I look forward to that. Are there any other reflections, or is anything missing? What else? Let's pause for just another couple comments if we can. I do have strong teacher wait time, but I also want to maximize our time together. So if anything else comes to mind, pop it in the chat and I won't make us suffer through the Zoom silence any longer. So we'll go ahead into just that, which is the discussion around our theme for today. So I'm going to turn the time back over to you, Nayesti, and look forward to hearing any other comments in the chat, and feel free at any time to take yourselves off of mute. Nayesti, you did not take yourself off of mute, so we cannot hear you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Please go to the next slide, Jamie. And Jamie Mendez, she's our wonderful technical assistant. She's in the background, but she's making this magic happen. So when we were looking at the emerging themes, one of the words in the definition said responsibility. So when we were looking at responsibility, it kept coming over and over again, but not precisely because they liked that word, but rather they wanted to replace it with something more meaningful. With that being said, they were saying that responsibility sounds something that is imposed on you, something very like not warm and fuzzy, more like cold and distant, compared to collaboration and partnership. You know, collaboration is that work together to to achieve something, and then over the time that relationship strengthens and it becomes a partnership. So a lot of the different groups and individuals kept saying, whose responsibility? What do you mean it's a responsibility? It should be a collaboration, it should be a partnership. And we said, well, it's interesting that these emerging themes are coming, because if we relate it back to the framework for the pre-work, we sent you kind of the introduction of those themes, and it has some relevancy to the framework. We'll be placing the link on the chat if you don't have it. But they were talking about roles. So in this specific script, they were saying, okay, in the framework, when we talk about family engagement, you have to kind of understand what's your role. Everybody plays a role. So what is your role, and how does that look like based on the spaces that you find yourself, right? So they were saying, okay, so because we want family engagement, because it's very valuable, everybody has a shared responsibility. But the individuals in this committee said, well, why a responsibility and not a collaboration and a partnership, which sounds that, we're working together and we're a partnership. We're at par, not just that you give me information. No, we are like together in it. So that brought up the concept of parent involvement and versus family engagement. So on the family engagement document, it states that parent involvement is something you do to parents. It's kind of just going to a workshop or something that you help parents with. But a family engagement is you inviting those and bringing those voices at the table, and you're really listening and together collaborating to eventually strengthen that relationship so it can become a more of a partnership, right? So when we were looking at the framework, we were like, okay, so it's interesting that the participants are already saying, I don't like responsibility, I like more collaboration and partnership. And we were like, great, we really want these relationships to strengthen. So today, with that being said, we want to start picking your brain and really delving into, okay, so if responsibility and partnership is something that we want to achieve when it comes to family engagement, how does that look from a different perspective? For example, from state office to state office, from state office to families, from state to community organizations, and so forth, from families to local agencies, from childcare programs to state offices. How do those dynamics change? And how does the partnership kind of take shape? And at the same time, what is your role? For example, I'll give you the example of something that we have here in the state and in our department, in the Department of Early Childhood Education Department. We have something called the Cross-Office Collaboration Call, where we have the opportunity to connect with other department areas, okay? We get to learn about collaboration, services available across the department, and then how such collaborations can be a great way to create and strengthen partnerships in current, ongoing, and future projects. So that's one example right now you see from state to state. How would it look from state to families? So when we talk about the Preschool Development Grant, PDGB-5, it's meant to strengthen those family voices, right? It's meant to strengthen that connection. But if you really look at it, sometimes we think that the state is up here and then the families can be down here. And no, we want to create that partnership to be at par. So my main role, for example, is to bring those family voices at the table, to make sure that we get those ideas, that feedback from individuals that usually you won't get that feedback. So you see, that's another partnership that we want to build with their families, because we don't want to be distant from each other, but rather we want to be working together and really listen to what they have to say, what they have to bring to the table. So with that being said, we went over a little bit of how this connects to the framework. What does responsibility, collaboration, and partnership looks like? I provided you a few examples from different perspectives, from different offices to different offices, or within the same offices. So now, if we go to the next slide, I'm going to pass it over to Rachel. Now we're going to have you get into those conversations, because I want to hear from you, not from me hearing myself.
Thanks, Nayesti. For this, we're gonna do something new so that we can practice this out together. So Jamie, would you go ahead and return one slide, please? And I'm gonna ask you to split the view so that we can see the slides where we'll take our notes for the breakout session. And then we're gonna actually model it together. All of us are gonna dive in. So we're gonna do a little bit of pre-work here together. So I'll wait for you to share your screen in split view, Jamie, with today's presentation and also with our breakout session note area. We're asking our tech assistants for quite a lot right now, so we will also need those slides, notes in the chat in just a minute. Thank you, Jamie, for your expertise and support. So before we go into the breakout sessions, like I said, we're going to do a full group discussion together to model what it is that you'll be doing in your split apart sessions. I'm looking at our attendance today, so we'll probably just have 2 or 3 groups. So we're going to be exploring those 2 questions that Nayesti brought up. What does responsibility, collaboration, and or partnership mean to you? And thinking through your role, those little icons on the left-hand side of the screen, what does that look like at the state? What is responsibility? What is collaboration? What is partnership? What does that look and feel like for childcare programs? What does that look like for kinder through 12th grade, or even serving if your service age is beyond 12th grade? What does that look like for our local education agencies? What does that look like for community organizations? So we all have a role to play. What does it look like for you? So I want you to brainstorm a few ways that you can share this. And there's lots to dive in. If Ariel's comment earlier was a good predictor, it's how much opportunity we have to dive into these terms and really help support families and help strengthen family engagement on behalf of our children. So some ways to share could be a personal experience. It could be an anecdote or story. It could be a connection to something you read in the framework and the toolkits. So I want you to put your thinking cap on, or your brainstorming cap, because we're going to go through this together. It could be something that you've noticed from research or from participating in a partnership, participating in collaboration, having a responsibility. So I'm going to be the facilitator. So I'm going to assign the roles right now to those of us who are here as we do this little modeling. And so I'll be the facilitator, and we'll also need a timekeeper. So if somebody can put in the chat, we're going to have 15 minutes to do this together. And the timekeeper's job is going to be to keep us within that 15-minute time frame. That can happen a variety of ways. You could enter the chat, say, hey, it's been 5 minutes, or all right, we're going to be done at 12:15. So I need a volunteer from our whole group. You can use your phone to do that time. You can use your memory, whatever works best for you. And then we're also going to need a note taker within each of our breakout groups. for this example and whole group discussion, I will be the note taker on the screen, and Jamie can transfer or actually just leave those both up. You'll see my notes popping in there. Thank you, Tara. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Tara is going to be our timekeeper. So we are going to get started. We have 15 minutes. And I'm going to encourage us to go back into the family engagement networking map. I've seen several of your names that have jogged my memory from one of your little profiles that I reviewed in there. So I hope you guys are all able to interact with that family engagement networking map, and that you can lean into that as an introduction to each other. So let's get started. We're going to take 15 minutes and just open up the floor. So what is it that collectively, what does partnership, collaboration, and responsibility mean to you? And I'm going to mute even as facilitators so that we can listen, and I will be our note taker.
I would say for me, it means getting to know the families and getting to know those that we're working with.
I didn't look over quick enough. Who said that beautiful comment?
I'm sorry, Brianna.
Thank you, Brianna. I remember from the networking map that you are in Fallon. So I would love to hear more about your role when we think of partnership and responsibility and collaboration, specific to your area, being one of our rural communities, but even larger rural communities. What does this look and feel like in your community?
So for us, a lot of things that we do with our families and with our parents is we try to keep them involved in just about everything when it comes to doing ASQ, so our ages questionnaire with the children. When it comes to doing even job interviews, we make them a part of that, letting them know that those things we want to hear their input on. When it comes to how we'll set up our classroom, how we will who we will get to be a part of our learning environment. We have meetings with them. We do those home meetings, and we do the center meetings, so that we know it's not just from our teaching standpoint, but it's also from, are we making sure that we are doing things that look like their home environment? And we'll make sure we're incorporating all of those things when we're teaching their children and when we're collaborating with them. Are we really looking into what they see on a day-to-day basis and what they want their child to see on a day-to-day basis? Or are we just looking at what we're looking at from textbook, knowledge? But really getting to know the families, inviting them to even different meetings. If we're having a teacher meeting, and sometimes we ask them to just be a part of it, just to hear what it is we're discussing, to see what our new ideas are and to give their input on it as well.
Thank you for that follow-up to your original comment. I really appreciate that. I'm going to just kind of group these as we go, but that doesn't mean that they're stuck in one area up on the screen. And I know that the typing is way too small. As you guys get into the slides themselves, you can zoom in or change the font size, whatever you need to do. So I'm going to mute again and see what other comments do we have that we can add in here. Thank you for sharing some of that rural and center or family perspectives there, and definitely family-centered perspectives, Brianna.
I have a comment. This is Ariel. So I think I might be, if that's okay, I might be triggering partnership and collaboration again. Category, excuse my voice. One thing I did remember from the last meeting we had was one of the main words was togetherness that we spoke on. So with that being said, even as me as personally as a parent, togetherness meaning like working all together as one. Like I'll say, for instance, as a personal example, my middle son has some behavioral issues, mental behavioral issues. So the principal had actually found a resource, actually two resources that could help my son because he actually goes to a magnet school, and they have resources where it can help and school kids in magnet schools to, you know, help maintain their behavior and mental situations, and even have therapy sessions. So she was able, as her being pretty much a part, I mean, collaboration because it's dealing with the school. So she was able to reach out to the partnership of the therapy or the therapist that works with this business. It's a free business or company here in Las Vegas. They reached out to me, the therapist did, as a parent. So I feel like it was a triangle. So for all of us to be in partnership and collaboration together, I felt like the parent is me personally being involved to help with my son, as well as the principal was involved and the therapist was involved. And of course, the main concern was my son, so we can help with these situations that he's going, you know, going through, and which definitely helped them. But I felt like just for all of us being together as one to help this child definitely feels more of a partnership, and two, in between a collaboration of us making sure that, you know, we can have the best needs for my son. So I will say that's definitely one I remember from last meeting about togetherness, just being as one and working as one to help our community and even our families and our children. Excuse my
Right.
voice.
I love that story, and thank you for sharing a personal story like that. It's so powerful what we can dive into from a seemingly small anecdote. And the first thing here is it's not small at all, right? That is big partnership and big collaboration. If you are comfortable sharing the answer to a follow-up question, what was that like for you as a parent? Was that a new experience where the principal was able to help strengthen that triangle, to help find the resources, to pay attention to your needs? Or is that something that you had experienced frequently as you've been raising your son? Was it something that you felt valued and seen in? So you don't have to share, but I would love to know more, because I think those anecdotes are very powerful when it comes to pulling out and diving deeper into why family voices do matter so much when it comes to engagement and all of our roles and responsibilities.
Yeah, I could definitely state that quickly. I will be honest, I was scared as a parent because, for one, you know, my son was dealing with it for almost I want to say close to 2 years. This was between when he was in fourth grade, now he's in the fifth grade. So, and my son is very quiet. Like, he is mainly, he goes off emotion. So, and he's a very smart kid. I will, you know, not to brag on him, but he is. And I think that's the thing that too was like, he's so smart. Why won't he, you know, just pretty much express what he's going through instead of acting on, you know, actions that he's doing, you know, with behavior and mentally. So with her, because, you know, she knows my older son too, he went to the same school, and she loves my middle son, the one that's having, you know, that was having this, the situation happen to him. But pretty much I told her I was scared, but I will trust into her as a parent because of her knowing my children and seeking their best interest. That's all I wanted from my middle son. So she's like, trust me, Miss Rollins. I will make sure that this will work out fine. His name is Maxwell. Work out fine for Maxwell. We just collaborated with this. Man, I'm trying to figure out, you guys might know of it too. It's like a therapy group here in Clark County mainly, but I think they are expanding throughout Nevada. But it was pretty much new. She said, I trust them. I trust their therapists. They're phenomenal. I think they will help Maxwell. But I will say, overall, I was nervous because I'm like, okay, as a parent, you know, do you think this will be the right decision for Maxwell? But at the same time, I'm like, well, I know the principal well. If she feels like this will work out for him, then I'll go ahead and continue with the process for him. Because that's the main concern is about Maxwell. So he can, you know, pretty much stay focused, and as well too, it will help with him personally and to remain in school. So yes.
Thank you, Ariel. I also see a comment here in the chat from Robin. I'm going to go ahead and read that. So Robin said, partnerships that are balanced, equitable, reciprocal, and open will lead to educators and families to share expertise and seek feedback in a mutually trusting way. I love that summary. Someone put a little clapping on it. I think that's a really very concise, kudos to you, Robin, way to summarize so many of those pieces from the anecdote that Ariel shared with us. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, Ariel, but if there's anything that comes forward from what you've shared, it really is that trust and having had that experience with the leader as their responsibility and the leader of the school site where your children are enrolled and receiving their academic supports. I think that's incredible that you guys were able to have that reciprocal relationship. What else stands out for you guys? Let's take a look at the questions again. So thinking through, and I got to find my own questions here. Thinking through responsibility. How about what does responsibility look like from the different perspectives that we're considering? So state responsibility to family engagement, child care program responsibility to family engagement, districts responsibilities to family engagement, families responsibilities for family engagement, and for our community organizations and supports responsibilities to family engagement. That sounds repetitive when you read them each like that, but really it's important to take on multiple perspectives so that we can move towards our value of equitable outcomes and diversity always being brought forward. So let's explore responsibility just a little bit. Does anyone have an anecdote that they'd like to share about responsibility that they feel? I know this word came up heavily in my discussion groups previously. And it's also part of the family engagement definition, that it's a shared responsibility. So let's dive in here just a little bit.
Rachel, if you don't mind, I'll speak on responsibility. So my name is Natalie Brugman. I'm a project facilitator and trainer for family engagement in our 5 southern counties. So our responsibility is to train educators on best practices in family engagement. And one of the things, my apologies, I missed the first meeting, but I love what came from that regarding the responsibility, feeling like that's imposed. One thing that comes up quite a bit in our trainings is that when we're talking about partnership and we're discussing, who's responsible for what, it's important for me, I feel like, to kind of drive that point home that the onus is really on the school to open the doors and kind of extend that hand for the relationship to even start. Because if families don't feel welcome, then it's really hard for them to kind of meet in the middle, right? So I do feel like there is there should be a sense of responsibility on the schools to extend that invitation and create that sense of trust in the schools. So I do think that there is should be something imposed on the schools in terms of getting those partnerships established and going. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Nathalie. Is that how you pronounced it? I want to make sure that I get it right.
Yes, Nathalie.
Thank you, Nathalie. That's, I'm sure you get this a lot, but my brain wants to say Natalie. So Nathalie, I will do my best to consistently share your name when I pronounce it correctly. I I see some other comments in the chat as well. Tara, or maybe Tara, I haven't heard you say your name yet, says, as a preschool director, I find great responsibility to share resources with my families. Often they won't get that information from anyone else, whether it's educational, developmental, or I would add there probably even community resources too. I see a hand raised. Rosemary?
Yes, I wanted to add to what both Ariel and Nathalie had mentioned. I think Ariel's story really captures the essence of responsibility, partnership, and collaboration. And when in speaking about responsibility, yes, I also agree that the schools need to, the representatives at the school in every level can show a bit more empathy, welcomeness, have that responsibility of being a community of care. It is not often the case that when I walked in, especially into some of the high schools, I don't see that often. But I do believe that the responsibility does fall into each one of the categories. And Ariel's story just made me realize how responsibility fell into each area. As a parent, just having the responsibility of having a community of care in the home, right? And then moving on to the principal, who he took responsibility to meet the needs of a child. And then what I also heard was that part of the responsibility was to really have a center of influence, which it seems once a person is in a position to be able to make the connections, they can really have those influencers outside. And in this case, there was a particular practitioner who could assist the child, who also felt a need, a responsible need to address the needs of the child. So I think if as a community, we hold that responsibility, then holistically, we will be able to provide a better community of caring. I think I don't see I loved Ariel, I loved your story, because we don't hear those stories very often. When sometimes referrals are made, there is a sense of responsibility from a counselor or from a teacher, and referrals are made, but then whoever the service provider is on the other side, if they don't have that sense of responsibility, or maybe they are just overwhelmed and don't have the time to be much more collaborative, it makes it difficult.
Oh, I just realized I was still off mute and trying to frantically find my off mute button. I couldn't mentally give enough little hearts while I was typing that out. So thank you for sharing. Who was that sharing? I'm sorry. I
It's
didn't even look
Rosemary.
where I was. Rosemary, that's right. I appreciate you sharing that. Tara, please come off mute and tell me how to pronounce your name so I don't get it wrong, because I've said it many ways now.
It's Tara.
Tara, thank you, Tara, for being our timekeeper for this whole group session. You guys can all see how much has already come out of it. The example screen where I was typing, Jamie, you can go ahead and present mode on that screen. This is my style, my note-taking style. I just type while people are speaking because I have quick fingers. So I'm going to have, there's going to be red lines. It might not make sense. We might move it around later, but we've provided these 3 buckets to help you in these smaller groups where we have a very close-knit sharing setting. Jamie, would you actually share the other presentation screen in full view? Thank you. So we can begin to dive in and hear some more of those stories. And Ariel, thank you again for sharing yours. We all have personal, professional stories related to these 3 terms, and just calling attention to the power and what has come forward from just one story really made me think on how does this transfer into the framework that we have. The framework that we have has so many wonderful components, is storytelling something that we might consider adding in the future? Does that belong in an area of the toolkit? Do we want to look at that strategy? So just planting those seeds now, because the power of our stories is, in this case, a very positive story and outcome. And I hope, Ariel, your child continues to do well, that Maxwell is doing well with those services. But also there are many stories that don't yet have outcomes like that. They're all work in progress, whether it's professional or personal. So we're going to break apart into groups and start diving in a little bit more, because of the power that we have to continue this conversation together. So when you get into your groups, you can choose a facilitator. It's not going to be one of the leaders of the meeting, so I've already done mine just now. Nayesti is also not going to be facilitating any specific breakout group. And so we're really turning that leadership and that voice over to those of you who are here today. So facilitating, you can use what I did as a model. You can take it on your own style, however you want. Assign a facilitator for your group. The 2 questions that we were using as prompts are going to be at the bottom of your screen. Jamie, if you go ahead and scroll down to group 1, please, then we can see. So everybody has access to the same presentation. So you'll access whichever group you end up joining. The first group will be for our bilingual participants, or for our Spanish speakers who are accessing the interpretation services. So we'll go ahead and break out into groups, and you'll make your facilitator, someone will choose, volunteer, and thank you in advance, and a timekeeper and a note taker. We had in our directions groups smaller or no bigger than 5, but I actually am going to change that to 3, so that we can just dive in and have some of those unrecorded, very intimate conversations. And Ariel, you did share your story earlier, so thank you. That part of the meeting was recorded, but if there's anything that was shared that you're uncomfortable being on the recording, please let us know so that we can edit that out. So it looks like the breakout groups are open. You can go ahead and join one of them and get started. Now, Yesti, remind me, how much time do we have during the breakout group so that our timekeepers can fulfill their role?
We have 15 minutes.
Thank you. So go ahead and take 15 minutes to continue to dive in, take notes at whatever capacity you're able. And we will call you all back together in 15 minutes.
One second. Hey, Tara, I think you're unmuted.
I muted her. Thank you,
Oh.
Natalie. Well, welcome everyone. So nice to see every one of you, coming back. So, we're gonna take this time to share out. So, bienvenidos a todos. Vamos a tomar el tiempo de compartir lo que hablamos. We're gonna take the time to share out. So, if whoever was in the Spanish channel, if anyone was there, feel free to share out, and then you can go to your Spanish channel. Okay, so it looks, yes. Okay. You can do it in either or.
If you guys haven't yet participated in a meeting where there is interpretation, the host can talk to both channels at once. So we can hear Nayesti, but we can't hear what was being asked from the Spanish channel. So that's what's happening right now. If this is the first time you've experienced it, it was a little bit surreal when I was like, oh, I know she's responding to something, but I can't tell what it was. So Nayesti, if you are ready with the Spanish channel question, we can move into our share out. this section was just to summarize what came forward in your breakout sessions. We saw all of the notes that you guys were taking. We can't wait to hear about it. So we're going to turn the time back over to you. I believe, Nayesti, we have about 10 minutes for, actually, sorry, about 7 minutes because we have to make an adjustment for time, just to
Yeah,
hear some of that share out.
Yes, so
So-
we'll go with group number 2, whoever was in group number 2.
I can share out. I think we're still adding to it, but we talked a little bit about the responsibility piece. None of us were at the first meeting, so we're kind of still holding on to what was said at the beginning about folks kind of, I hope I'm interpreting this correctly, folks kind of feeling that the word responsibility that's threaded throughout the original framework felt a little imposed. And I would agree too. I actually was on that committee to help
Yo estoy en el comité.
draft that. So we kind of talked a little bit
Hablamos
about
sobre
responsibilities that we have. So both Darl and I, we train teachers. So we're kind of at that school level of support. And Tara is a pre-K teacher, I believe. And so we kind of have a very narrow view of that responsibility piece, I kind of feel like, because we don't have a lot of access to the other other entities that are contributing to the framework work. So we just talked about the responsibility of the school to develop that culture for family engagement and providing that welcoming environment. Tara touched on families needing to take the initial responsibility to seek services, more so in talking about pre-K, because she can't just go down the street and say, oh, do you have kids, kids who need this service. So, and then we talked about there just being a shared vision between the families, schools, and the state that would be helpful in kind of divvying up any responsibilities. And then also, I'm just trying to remember what this one was. Oh, we were talking about, if schools, if the responsibility is put on the schools, that's all fine and good. However, if there's not a culture for effective family engagement in place, it's just a checklist, and it's going to fall flat in terms of really creating those relationships and partnerships and trust that's needed. And then we talked about partnerships. Tara shared about having a collaboration between resources to offer smoother services for families, bringing more training down to the classroom level to make services and resources more effective. Partnerships would be more successful if all schools were brought in during the initial stages to create authenticity in working together. And that's just kind of one of those things about like just bringing everybody to the table and having representation of the folks that are being serviced. And then lastly, with collaboration, just talked about better communication between services to provide fluid situation for parents, providers, and organizations. So that was it.
Perfect. Thank you so much for those reflections. Definitely a lot to process, but we'll get there. But I'm glad that we're having those conversations. We'll invite the last group number 3, just to, give a brief share out and as we continue with this conversation.
I'll go ahead since I have the notes in front of me, but it was Brianna, Robin, and Ariel. So as far as responsibility, we spoke about the partnerships that are balanced, equitable, reciprocal, and open, that will lead to educators and families to share expertise and seek feedback in a mutually trusting way. And that was mentioned in the chat. And then as far as the partnerships, we spoke about the school's partnership efforts with families must be adaptable and data-driven. When the family of a student is able to communicate with their child's teacher, the two sides can work together to build a relationship. And so as far as collaboration, and let me see, I think there's a little bit more down here. Also under partnership, as the relationships are built, it creates an optimal learning environment both at home and at school. As far as collaboration, we did talk quite a bit about the services that are available in the urban areas, but may not be available to our rural families. So there has to be a stronger collaboration between the urban area services and the rural areas. And quite a bit of discussion was around finding the service providers for students who may not qualify for services. So there are services that are available for students, but if a student doesn't qualify for a service because of income or other reasons, how can then those in leadership roles find those resources and be able to build a collaborative effort to address the needs of all the students? And that's all I had. I don't know if anyone from the team wants to add anything else.
Well, this is Robin. I just want to say good job. That is pretty much what we talked about. And it was fortunate that we had a couple of people to be able to talk about personal story that might relate to this as well. Families just don't know what they don't know. In other words, it sometimes is really difficult to find resources that are meeting their needs. And then sometimes we can find that schools are maybe not receptive to the idea of sharing outside resources when the student and that family really might need that help. The school, in some instances, it shows reluctance. So we would want the school to embrace the family and whatever resources they're trying to use to help their children.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. And yes, definitely, it's that, once again, that word of collaboration, like whose role is to do what, so we can all come together and have this partnership to the betterment of whoever is receiving that resource. Definitely lots to reflect on it. And with that being said, we're gonna pass to the next section, which this would tie in some of those conversations, and it will help with that continuous conversation that we're currently having. So I will pass it out to Rachel.
It's really a beautiful segue, and also being mindful of time, looking at bringing in this part of the conversation. We just wanted to introduce or begin the conversation around what are resources, what are tools, how do those terms resonate with families? During the first meeting, some reflections were shared that tools may have a negative connotation to it because it implies that something may need to be fixed. And then also the other side of that coin is we use tools to really build beautiful things and to grow. And so thinking of, is there a difference between resources and tools? What is the terminology that best expresses what we hope to provide and receive as wherever we are in our role experiencing how we support children, whether we're parent, I put my mom hat on while some of you guys were speaking. I do have 3 very young children, and so making sure that how we explore these conversations, these terms, continues to develop. And it's 12:53, so I don't think that we'll be able to dive in as deeply as we had planned or prepared for this conversation. So I think if we can shift into just a couple things to reflect on between now and our next meeting, and we will send this out in the follow-up. But what does come to mind when you think of resources? Many of us today have used the word resources. What comes to mind when we think about tools? And then at the end of our beautiful framework, there's the word, it's a toolkit. So what is a toolkit? I always like to think of it. I have a toolbox, and in my toolbox, I have many toolkits. And so this toolkit happens to relate with family engagement specifically, but maybe that's something that we can shift. Is it a resource kit or resources, the items that schools make those connections to resources, are tools what the families use? I don't know yet, but we want you to reflect on these terms as we move in between now and our next meeting. We'll bring those follow-up questions and have some time to dive in together. And Nayesi, if it's okay with you, we'll just go ahead and jump into the next section. Because it ties these 2 things together, both pre-work or post-work. I'm not going to call it homework. And our upcoming meeting.
Thank you so much, Rachel. So what we want to do now is we want to empower you and give you that voice, and now bring your reflections and let us know what you want to do moving forward with all of those discussions that we have going on. So we're going to open some breakout rooms, and it's just going to be in groups of 3. So that framework has 3 sections, and it touches upon some of those emerging themes. So the first one is equity. The second one is relationships. And the third, fourth, and fifth come together, and that's honoring families, linked to learning and development, building everyone's capacity. So we're going to send you to the breakout rooms right now. You self-select which one you want to be part of. And I just want you to take each other's contact information and just say, how would we like to share our reflections? Do we want to meet one-on-one separately and then just discuss these? Or do we just want to put together kind of our reflections on email? So we just share it with everyone. Be as creative as you want. We want to give you that freedom. So with that being said, please go ahead and open the breakout rooms. And what we're going to do is just give you 3 minutes just to really decide, hey, like, nice to meet you. This is my contact information. We want to have a phone call, or let's just have a discussion and everybody shares just the reflections in one Google Drive document, whatever you want to look like, because then we really want to delve into it in next section. Welcome, everyone. I hope you were able to get all of the information you needed and discuss how you're gonna tackle this. Like I said, once again, we just want you to really look at your section and share your reflections so you can decide how you want to approach this moving forward. Next slide, please. So on the chat, we place the evaluation link. Please, fill it out. Let us know how we can improve. Give us any suggestions. This is your meeting as much as is our meeting. And next March 28th at 10 a.m., we'll see you for the next framework meeting. And I'm looking forward to hear all of your reflections. If you have any questions, I'll stay over and I can just help you answer them. Thank you so much for everything.
And we do use those evaluation results to help us plan and prepare the next meeting. That's partially how we got those emerging themes and also some of the increased time for our breakout rooms and our conversations. So please do share that feedback if you're able as soon as possible or prior to the next meeting. We understand you are all very busy.